All right. All right. Good morning from May 9th, 2023. One of my little Dharma, whatever, reflections is to notice when there's little pieces of Dharma that show up in popular culture or in the culture. So, if any of you watch excuse me, I might need a cough drop. There's one on the floor, that'll do. Sorry. If any of you watch television where there's commercials in California, there's one running by there's like some kind of a thing called California Cares that is something about like taking care of people, that the government is offering some kind of treatments and stuff. Anyway, the commercial starts, life is uncertain. I was like, oh, that's what Ajahn Chah always said. Life is uncertain. And then the other night, I can't wait. I got to see this again. There was a commercial for something called everythingbreaks.com. And I was like, oh, everything breaks, everything is impermanent. And it was like some kind of a thing that like repairs things for you or something. But I was like, everythingbreaks.com. Why didn't I get that URL? And then on a more, so these are all impermanence related, right? So on a more, somber, I love the New York Times science section that comes on Tuesdays. And today there was an article on the end of the universe. And it was funny. The author was like talking about how it upset them when they realized that in hundreds of billions of years, the universe is going to fall apart. Like apparently everything is moving apart and eventually it just disintegrates. And I was like, yeah, I knew that already. Everything is impermanent, including universes. Although, of course, it's interesting. We'll meditate in a minute, but it brings to mind something, Thich Nhat Hanh sort of talks about another sort of angle of that, which is that he's like, well, there's no birth and death because everything is just in transition, and that when you die, it's that energy that was your life still exists. And so that's another take on the end of the universe. All that energy will still exist, presumably, but I'm not a scientist. So, anyway, that's your pop culture Dharma for the morning. And we're going to meditate for about 20 minutes. And then I'm going to continue with my book, Buddhism and the 12 Steps Workbook. All right, so let's settle back and just get comfortable. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze. And just settling into your posture. It doesn't hurt to take a few moments to really adjust and make sure you're sitting in a way that's comfortable, but will allow you to stay alert and engaged. I'm trying to feel the body's alignment, the head and neck, shoulders, spine, the hips. It's interesting to tune into this. If you have ordinarily a healthy posture, this might be easy to find. But if you have a a less naturally healthy posture. You might find it takes a little while to find the actual balanced alignment. And just feeling the body breathing. Relaxing any points of tension. Often we find that there's a tightness in the jaw. That's a place to intentionally relax. You might tend to hunch the shoulders. So just releasing the shoulders. And then there can be the tendency to tighten the belly. So just breathing into the belly, maybe take a deeper breath. Opening up and softening. And through this process of settling, also just generally connecting with the body, with the felt experience, sensations. It's one of the first things we have to learn with mindfulness meditation is to really inhabit our body. It's full of subtle sensations that we may go a lifetime without really acknowledging or being aware of. So at first it might be a bit alien to simply feel your body, even to know what that means. But with practice, we start to tune in. We discover this whole subtle realm of sensation and energy and feeling. And we can rest in that. We can actually get quite settled, relaxed. By just feeling that realm of experience. It's very open kind of awareness because it's not focused on one particular sensation. And at a certain point, you start to discover the emotional element within the body. Here we see the connection between body and feelings. And then finally, we see how thoughts also manifest in the body as feelings. But we're putting together the whole mind, body, feeling, connection. Not seeing these as separate things, but all part of one system interacting. And the breath is our connector. We breathe with body, feelings, and mind. Typically, the tendency is for thoughts to pull us out of this experiential process, bring us into the mental realm of words and images, disconnected from body and feeling. So a lot of our work is noticing when this happens and gently coming back. Not struggling or judging, analyzing, but simply letting go, reconnecting the felt experience. Other things can also pull us out of this state of mindfulness, things like loud noises, intense sensations, strong emotions. Mindfulness involves observing whatever is happening without judgment, without conflict. With a gentle, inclining effort to be present. All right. Well, good morning again. Nice to see everyone. So I said I'd be looking at, I've been working with the Buddhism, the 12 Steps Workbook, just sort of starting from the beginning. And, the introduction sort of takes you through this idea of working the steps using meditation. And then there's a couple of other little pieces, something called How to Use This Book. I'll read some of this. It's sort of, just information. It says the purpose of this book is to give you practical tools for working with your recovery and with the 12 steps, all based on Buddhist teachings, practices, and principles. The heart of the book is the exercises. I've used many of these in my workshops and retreats, as well as in my own program and practice for many years. Some I made up as I was writing the book. Frankly, you can make up your own. That's because what's important isn't my particular approach to this process, but that you become engaged in the process. I'm only trying to help you with that, not control how you go about it. Which is sort of, part of my, I guess, philosophy and why I don't present a program, a particular program for recovery. But I do feel like people have to kind of find their own way for what works. And when we try to impose one method as if it's going to work for everyone, I think we do people a disservice. So I have this description of these different types of practices, and I think what's relevant about it is not so much in relation to this book, but what's sort of thinking about using all these things in our recovery and in our spiritual work. There's contemplative. These are exercises that are for quiet reflection, which, I think we often do that maybe intentionally or unintentionally when we're meditating. And, it's different from just like thinking and spacing out. It's trying to really reflect deeply on some spiritual topic. And, I think that's one of the most important things we can do with our lives is when we like take refuge in the Dharma. To me, that means that we're trying to really see all of our experience through this lens of Dharma, that we're trying to look at the world through this lens, which is why, the everythingbreaks.com, stands out to me, because I'm looking for that, right? And I think that's important, because it's so easy to get caught in the world and in society's version of what life is and what's important, and forget that, like, that's just a construction that's, founded, society, economics, culture are largely founded on greed, hatred, and delusion. We find pockets of wisdom and loving kindness and compassion in the world, but so much is not that. So to keep looking, through this Dharma lens, and it applies to the political and the sort of conflicts in culture and society as well, to remind ourselves that this is all the habits of human behavior of greed, hatred, and delusion playing out. So the contemplative And then the meditative, of course, cultivating, as it says here, trying to help you train the mind to be more present and calm, to develop insight and open the heart. These are usually done in silence. And yeah, I mean, we can, could spend a lot of time talking about the purpose of meditation. And I think it's a really interesting topic. The ordinary, I think, idea about meditation is, oh, I'm sitting down to meditate in order to turn off my thoughts and to have a really peaceful time and maybe connect with some spiritual realm or force or power. And those are all lovely impulses, but what we discover when we, certainly with mindfulness meditation, is that there's a lot that gets in the way of those things. And if we think of those obstructions as problems, then we wind up in this conflicted relationship with our experience, where it's like, oh, this isn't what I want to have happen, or I'm doing it wrong, or maybe I should wait for a better day, have another cup of coffee before I meditate, whatever, rather than saying, whatever is happening that is the material that I have to work with, and what can I get from this? How can I work with this? Meditation isn't some other world we can step into. It can introduce us. It can evolve into other worlds, other mental realms with a lot of development. But in our ordinary practice, we're just in our ordinary mind. And so it's an opportunity to see, what is my ordinary mind, and how is it creating problems for me? How is it creating opportunities? What are the beautiful parts of it? What are the painful and confused parts of it? And what is my, fundamentally, what is my relationship to all that? Can I hold all that with patience, with compassion, with acceptance? Can I bring curiosity rather than control into that experience? Can I be interested? Like, what is this mind? What is this body? What is this existence as a human being, or just a being? That's where so much is revealed, and we can gain so much from a meditation that then isn't just in the meditative experience. It's not just a period of peace. This is what we call insight, that we start to see the world differently, understand the world differently, which then impacts how we feel about the world and our whole experience of life. So this is the transformative element of meditation. It really takes patience. One of the questions this weekend at that class in Walnut Creek was kind of about, like, well, how can I make this stuff happen, right? Or how can I make my meditation be this or that? How can I quiet my mind? All those usual questions. And I try to get through to people that, like, this is a long-term project. And this is one of the ways that recovery is such a great parallel. When you come into sobriety and you think, wow, 30 days, man, I made it. Like, that's a big deal, right? But when you're looking back after 10 or 20, or more years, you think, wow, those first 30 days, you were just freaking, trying to claw your way out of the sewer. You weren't like, there might have been some light up there coming through the grate, but it was a long way away. And, when I talk about early recovery, I'm talking about the first 2 years minimum, and maybe 5 years before things start to get more and more clarified. But so if we think about our meditation in the same way, like maybe 2 years of practice, including some retreats, and I'll start to have get some clarity and some real results. But, when you think about, I know many of you have long-term sobriety. When you think about, 10 years sober, it's like, okay, how about 10 years of meditation practice? And we can look at the monastic world as a model for this as well. And one of the frameworks for monks particularly, I think, in Thailand, is that you stay with a teacher for 5 years. You stay with your first teacher for 5 years, and that after 10 years as a monk, you become an ajahn, which means you're really authorized to be a teacher. You're really kind of considered more of a senior monk. And to think about, what does that 10 years involve, right? It's not just hanging out. It's like every year there's 3 months of retreat. So when you get done with 10 3-month retreats, then you're ready to be a teacher. Like, it's not, I haven't done that. I mean, I guess maybe I could add up all my 10-day retreats and get up to that much. So I don't know. Have to look at that. But anyway, there's a lot of Western teachers who are lay teachers who don't have anything like that. Which doesn't mean they don't have anything to offer, but just to acknowledge that this is a long, long path, it's wonderful to meet elder monks. By the way, little side note, someone sent me a picture of the front page of The Guardian in England yesterday, and they had a day for the coronation. The Monday after the coronation, they had a bank holiday, and it was the help out day or something like that. It was a day to do service, and the front page of The Guardian had a picture of Ajahn Amaro beside the Archbishop of Canterbury, and they were feeding people at like some kind of a soup, what do we call it? Homeless shelter thing. So pretty cool. Ajahn Amaro is an elder monk, which is funny for me to say. He's younger than me, but he's been a monk since about 1978, and so anyway, it's great to meet people like that and to feel their energy. The two that I'm close with, Ajahn Pasno and Ajahn Amaro. Ajahn Pasno especially has a simplicity about him that kind of seems like the Platonic ideal of the Buddhist monk. He just seems very simple, and then you look and you realize he's been doing this for so long, and this is his life. And Ajahn Amaro is more charismatic, but is also still very simple. There's no sort of pomp and circumstance around him, anyway. So meditation, it's a long and winding road, and the long enduring mind is a great term. So other things in here about how to use this book. There's written exercises, which obviously is a big part of the 12-step world for many people. And I have a thing called blended, which are like, many times I suggest that you meditate before doing a written or contemplative exercise. This allows you to clear the mind and deepen your ability to think. Well, I think this is vital. My very first Buddhist teacher told me that I shouldn't read a Dharma book before I meditated, but after I meditated. which was the reverse of what I thought. Because I thought, okay, I'll sit down, I'll read the Dharma, and then I'll close that up and quick meditate and like, take everything I learned and like do it. And he's like, no. What you need to do is quiet the mind so that when you read the Dharma, you can actually understand it, clear some of the noise in your mind. And this is why if you're on a meditation retreat, or really you come to a class like this, we meditate first, right? We meditate before I talk about the Dharma. I don't give them, the Dharma talk and then we meditate. Okay, now you're filled up with Dharma. Like, no, it's just the opposite. You want to try to quiet your mind enough that you can hear it. Many of the stories in the early Buddhist teachings, the Pali Canon, people become enlightened listening to the Buddha, and I've heard it said that, and I think it was Christopher Titmuss, an English Buddhist teacher, who said that more people get enlightened listening to the Dharma than any other way. A really interesting thing to hear, because you think, oh, I thought you got enlightened by like meditating really hard, and then you finally got there. But we all have this experience, and put enlightenment aside, just of like the light bulbs going on or the insights coming when we hear a certain thing from a teacher, right? And it may be something that we've heard many times before, but right in that moment we were ready to hear it. So, it reminds me of the line about meditation. Enlightenment is an accident, and meditation makes you accident prone. That's kind of how meditation works, right? That it just prepares your mind to take in the Dharma. And the last thing I have here on how to use this book is the daily exercises, which is going back then to what I was talking about really taking this and seeing our experience through this lens of Dharma. It says many of the exercises are meant to be brought into your daily life, both as behaviors and awareness exercises. Ultimately, we are trying to change our lives, so the exercises should be relevant to our lives. Yeah, I wasn't sure I was going to actually cover this part of the book because it seems sort of like just telling you how to read the book, but I think it's useful to think about our practice and how it's functioning. There's no magic to this. This takes work and effort and commitment and I'll say strategies. Many people like develop strategies for how to be mindful, right? Like there's things of, every time you walk through a doorway, or you try to remember, Thich Nhat Hanh has the whole book full of what's called gathas, little verses to recite during different activities, washing the dishes, and he's like, wash the dishes like you were, what does he say? Like what? Bathing the baby Jesus or the baby Buddha or something. These kind of just strategies, and it's good. I've done things like for a while when I worked in downtown San Francisco, I would walk from the BART train to my office, and I would just do a loving kindness phrase for each person I walked past. It was a really good exercise. So having strategies and practical ways to apply your Dharma practice into your life, I think is really helpful. And again, we do this in the recovery world as well. Calling your sponsor every day, or writing a 10th step every night, or and obviously prayer and meditation. And a lot of people have like a ritual of reading that they do in their morning practice. And, and then we can also then start to bring our values into our life, right? So that, like, maybe you decide that you want to be a vegetarian because you want to not kill beings, or get an electric car because, if you can afford one, because you want to, leave less of a carbon footprint. And, so, and that's part of our spiritual practice, right? My wife recently joined this thing called Ridwell that takes some of the plastic that the ordinary recyclers don't take. And, it's like, okay, we have to sort of organize whenever you get a package, you peel off the plastic, put it into a bag, and each week we put that out. And, these ways that we can be very practical in our spiritual life and trying to be aware. It's not just to be aware of my breath or my feelings, but to be aware of the world. And this then sort of ties into engaged Buddhism, which really is about bringing these spiritual principles into the world in a really wholesome way. I've never said that word before, so I just try that out. Fulsome. I've seen it, so I think it worked. So there you are for your morning reflection. I am going to have to leave right on the top of the hour, so I'll open it up and see if there's any comments or questions or reflections this morning.
Hey, Kevin.
Well, John.
Good question for you. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Oh, that was the question? I think you froze. I could talk about how I am, but I'm not sure that was the end of the question.
Can
Let's
you
wait
hear me
and see.
now?
Okay, yeah, there you go. You're back.
I'm calling in from Beirut, Lebanon right
Oh,
now. That's
wow.
where I'm at. Yeah, and yeah, the Wi-Fi is not so great here. Neither is electricity in general. But it makes for a lot of good meditating, and I'll be up in the mountains soon. I found a cool retreat to go spend a weekend at. I'd like to do a self-retreat there. So I'm wondering if you have any pointers or resources or guides that you can think of that might help me in the process.
On a self-retreat?
Yeah.
What I recommend is that you make a schedule and stick to it.
Okay.
Because there will be a tendency to want to, slip and slide. It's like, oh, well, and that's one thing, that when you're on a group retreat, there's a schedule, and it's easier to stay with it because everybody's doing it. So you're doing it together with people, and sort of the momentum and the peer pressure or whatever that helps. And so when you're on your own, you really need to set something up that you're going to be able to work with and make it a workable schedule. Don't try to okay, I'm getting up at 3 a.m. and meditating for 3 hours before I have my tea. Just figure out what it feels like a good schedule. As much as you can limit. I mean, if you're trying to have a meditation retreat, as much as you can limit any kind of electronics. First of all, like I would just turn off the phone, and limit reading and writing to just very specific times of day and specific purposes. Be very intentional, in other words, right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Wonderful. That's great. That's exciting, being in Lebanon.
Yeah. Oh, I guess one other quick question. Are you, I heard, I guess I heard through the grapevine that you might not be teaching these classes as much as you have in the past. Are you
I'm trying to make a little bit more space, maybe have someone else cover certain times. And so I'm asking Debbie and Ann and others to step in here and there, but nothing formal at this point.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hi, excuse me. I don't see the hand feature, so I'm just going to jump in, and I'm sorry my camera's not on.
Go
This is
ahead.
Susan. This
No
is Susan.
problem, Susan.
I just wanted to say, yay, thank you so much for launching into this book, which is so helpful. Thank you, thank
good.
you.
You're welcome. Thanks. I just need something to, inspire my teaching each day. Not that I'm not always totally inspired, but
Of course, of course.
it is really helpful to have a book because it just, gives a little topic and then we can jump off from there. Thanks, Susan.
Hi, Paul here.
Hello, Paul.
So I've been coming to these off and on for over a year and a half, and finally today wanted to share. Thank you for all that you do and for being here still. And I went to a local rehab in the Bay Area recently and was there for a month. And I used to offer and facilitate. I used to facilitate mindfulness classes and meditations in my acupuncture practice, in addition practice up until COVID, including multi-day non-residential retreats, but I never led a meditation. I would teach it some basics to patients as one-on-ones or that, but in rehab within a few days, I sort of had a number of insights or awakenings, and one was that everything I had done was to be here and now and to lead meditations. And so it was a pretty well, you can imagine the diversity and particular population of people, most of them out of jail or prison. They're avoiding or doing time. And it was very strong in the 12 steps, a lot of classes all day, right? So cognitive behavioral therapy and emotional intelligence work, and a lot of writing and then some step stuff as well. And so I think it was only day 5 that I was there for the month that I began Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, offering it just after lunch in a gap that we had. And I ended up with 8 people the first day, and then a consistent 15 to 18 plus, which was a third of the population there, of those embracing this, and only one person there had ever done meditation. So some came and went and others stayed. And somebody tried to carry it through since then. So I'm wishing him success. But for me, it was enriching and did a lot for, as you can imagine, self-esteem and self-worth and kindness to be able to serve others while I was serving healing myself at that time. And I used your 12-step book. I bought a couple when I got in there. I was able to stock up on stuff, and because all my books are on my phone and we didn't have access to our phones, I bought a few extra copies of a few things, and one of them was your 12 steps. So I started lending that around, and then after a couple I started reading sections from it. In particular, I found helpful for people, the way your book is said, to just say, hey, look, you're working on step 4, just read the chapter on step 4. You don't have to read it cover to cover. And one person grabbed a book and just devoured it from page whatever XXII all the way through the end in days, and then started highlighting it. I just gave them the book, but it was really useful and helpful and nourishing for them, and incredibly nourishing for me to be able to have that and have you there with me and the whole Sangha here. So I thought of you a lot and knew that when I came out back into the world, that I would jump in and offer a share and a gratitude. Thank you. And you've touched many in ways that perhaps you have done in the past, or maybe this is a new way, but thank you.
Thanks, Paul. That's really, really sweet. Nice to hear. That's quite a story, being in rehab and teaching mindfulness. It's great you had that skill already under your belt to be able to bring in and do service even as you were being served, if you will. So Good
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
In the 2-year class with mindfulness meditation teacher program with Jack and Tamara and others. And coincidentally, I got kicked out because I was not showing up enough towards the end of it because I was relapsed, right? And but I had never done it to be a teacher. I had done it for sort of a way to be accountable and a way to study on a regular basis during COVID. And it led me to having the skills and some licks, so to speak, to play for those that were interested. So
Yeah.
felt that, and it was that part of me that reawoke, and that I think I'm ready to practice again. And so I'm looking to renew my license and things like that. So yes, again, it's wonderful to be here.
Good. Well, keep coming back.
Indeed, thank you.
All right. All right. That's a nice note to wrap up on. I will leave you with the suggestion that you just maybe over the next couple of days reflect on how you are applying your practice beyond just sitting on a cushion or sitting and meditating, and if you can integrate it further into your life. I'll also mention that I'm saying that for everybody, by the way, I'm not. And I am going to be on the Spirit Rock Zoom this Friday. So this will be the second Friday of the month. So if you're looking for me on Friday night, that's the link. It's on the front page of my website, and it's on the Spirit Rock website. So I hope you all have a safe and enlightening day. Take care.
Thank you, Kevin. Enjoy.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right.
Thank you, Kevin.
Nice to see everybody.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.